Hi, everyone, and welcome to Money Unwrapped. We are so excited to be here with you today to begin our journey of unwrapping the ideas of the financial world. I'm your host, Jordan Harrison.
And I'm your host, John Harrison.
Before we begin, we wanted to introduce ourselves. As I said before, my name is Jordan Harrison, and I am a licensed financial advisor with Elevation Advisory Partners and Harrison Capital Management, as well as insurance licensed for life, health, property, and casualty.
And I'm John Harrison, and we're a father-daughter team. We help people navigate the financial waters, and we're here to help them in any way we can. We're a full-service financial planning firm with a team behind us, and we look forward to helping people.
Today, we're going to be diving into the multi-layered, sometimes intimidating world of credit and credit cards. So, John, can you tell us about the first time you realized credit cards could seriously impact someone's life, good or bad?
Well, it was probably when I was in college, and like everybody else, I used to get these flyers to open up a credit card. And I remember when I got it and I got my credit limit, it was like $2,500. And because I was kind of immature and incompetent when it comes to money, I went and got a stereo system for my truck.
Ooh!
And immediately maxed out that card.
Oh, gosh.
So that was not a very exciting experience, which I'm sure you will ask me about as we go on through this. But that was probably my first experience. It was with Discover, and this was obviously back in the late 80s. So Discover was fairly new.
Yeah. Would you say that that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions is that it feels like free money, or at least that's what I hear all the time?
It does feel like free money because, there used to be a thing that you had cash and you would pay for things with cash. And then obviously, when you go into your pocket, if you don't have cash, you can't buy anything. But when you have a credit card, you just pull it out and you can swipe or in today's modern world, tap. And as long as you have availability on your credit, it'll go through.
Well, I think it is important to define these terms before we dive too deep into it. So as we all know, credit is the ability of a customer to obtain goods and services before payment based on the trust that a payment will be made in the future. But I personally think it's easier to explain it as borrowed money with the promise to pay. But the other terms that I get asked about the most are APR, credit limit, and available credit. I would love to hear how you would define those terms.
Well, let's start with APR. APR stands for annual percentage rate, and that is the rate that the credit card company and or bank is going to charge you on your outstanding balance.
Okay, so that outstanding balance, how does that work necessarily?
Well, to your point about what is a credit limit, let's say that your credit limit is $5,000, which is kind of a normal credit limit for college students who get their first credit card, and they do what I did, something stupid, and they go and buy a stereo system for their truck, right? And it's $2,500. So now you take the $5,000, which is the credit limit, minus the $2,500 that I spent unwisely, and then that leaves the available credit of $2,500. But that's not really the available credit, because what most people don't realize is that the interest that they charge on that outstanding $2,500. So back to the annual percentage rate, let's say most credit cards are in the 20 to 25% annual percentage rate. So let's say I spent that $2,500 and it was 20%. That means that I'm going to pay $500 for the privilege to buy that stereo system in my truck.
Was it worth it is the real question.
Exactly. Was it really worth it? And, you're paying interest on top of your interest because every month you get a bill and it'll give you a minimum payment. And that minimum payment is what I would call an evergreen payment because it's so small, it's just to keep kind of the interest paid. So in that case, if it's $500, you divide it by 12, it's roughly, what, $47 a month in interest. So you'll get a payment and it'll say minimum payment of $65. Well, people are like, oh, well, that would give me extra money. No, it only really gives you like $20.
Right. I would actually love to hear your perspective on minimum payments and how they work because, as you alluded to, they change each billing cycle. And each person's credit card, that number, their minimum payment is different.
I think, the minimum payment is a way for the credit card companies to get the maximum interest out of you. And I always tell people, when you go and you use your credit card, you just have to be very disciplined to know that you can pay it off at the end of each month when you get your bill. Because otherwise, it's like a snowball going down a hill. It continues to build. And the next thing you know, oh, wow, I had a $5,000 credit limit. Now my bill is $5,500 because of the interest that's added, and you're just making the minimum payment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would like to go back a little bit, though, to unpack APR a little bit more because it's a very complicated concept for many people.
Yes, the APR is really interesting because there's a lot of factors that go into the rate that they're going to charge you. So one of the biggest factors is your credit score. And as you know, when you were in college, you didn't have really a credit score, right?
Right, no credit history. And I remember looking at it and thinking, why is my credit score so low? I couldn't do anything at that time. I think my first credit card, maybe my credit limit was $4,000, maybe.
And that's after you got a big girl job, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. So I couldn't even imagine opening it up without a job, being a student, which many, many people survive on credit cards as well.
And what did you notice when you were in college at LSU, go Tigers, about some of your friends and how they used their credit card?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think that what you mentioned earlier with discipline is a huge factor. I had so many friends who would open a credit card or their parents would open one under their name, and rather than spending on their credit card for things that they needed, such as like dinners, groceries, maybe books if their parents weren't supplementing, they would go to the mall and would max out their credit card buying things that they didn't need. And I remember reflecting on myself and even having that bad thought that I think a lot of people have, which is, what's so bad about that? Before I knew anything, of course, before I was wise enough and mature enough to reflect and realize that that's not the best decision. But I remember having a lot of jealousy that people would go and just spend all this money that it seemed that they had on frivolous things when I would be very cautious with spending my money and making sure that I'm only spending the small amount of money I had in college on things that I need.
Right. And, you made a very good point. People think that just because they have the card, they can just spend money.
Yes.
And obviously, if it's on their parents' credit card, the limits are usually a lot higher.
Exactly.
And to your point about, the APR and why it's so confusing for people, there's various factors. One is your credit score, which we just talked about.
Yes.
And obviously, the higher your credit score, the lower your interest rate. Another is your income, because they want to make sure that you're able to pay back whatever it is that you charged. And then lastly, and kind of the dirty secret that people don't know, which impacts your credit score, is credit utilization. They would like to see it below 30%. So what I always tell clients as they're trying to establish credit, because we get a lot of referrals from our households for their kids, is set it at a certain limit, like $1,500, and then pay it off every month, because that shows that you have the ability to pay it back. You're utilizing your credit, but then you're paying it down, so your credit utilization is not that high.
So then, in your opinion, would it be more beneficial to spend less on a credit card that you 100% can pay off each month, or spend more and use more of your available credit but pay off slightly less? Do you have an opinion on that?
I do. I think it's better to spend less and pay it off. And I think that if your credit limit, for example, is $10,000, never let your limit really get over $3,000, because when they factor in your credit score, they like to keep it below 30%.
And I don't know the history of that 30%, but has that always been the standard in credit cards, or has that number changed depending on what time in history we're at or what's going on in the market?
I think that that's kind of changed as time has gone on. And of course, if you look at it, as somebody gets older and they have a house, obviously their credit utilization is going to be much different. They have a house that's $400,000 and they have a mortgage of, let's call it $300,000. There's only a 25% equity there.
Right. Well, I also think a lot of what we talk about with financial advice or finances in general is the stage of life you're in and your circumstances and what your personal goals and objectives are. So would you say that credit cards and the way you leverage them truly depends on your phase of life?
Absolutely. Think about like when you were in college and the phase of life you were in, what did you use your credit card for?
Everything.
Right.
Everything, truly. But in college especially, it's, you're going out with friends, you're buying outfits for sorority events and, keeping up with the times as much as you can. And then also the school factors. So books, if I needed a computer, headphones, things like that, gas to drive home.
So in that phase, you were really relying on your credit card for cash flow.
Yes, exactly.
Now, when you got your first big girl job at Wells Fargo, what did you use your credit card for?
The same thing.
But what did you learn?
Same
What did
thing.
you learn from that?
Oh man, I think that the only way to truly learn these things and to know them and to fully digest them is to go through it, right? Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's those real life hard mistakes that we all make, like you with your stereo. And I think that I just truly learned how expensive life is and how our society is honestly set up for credit cards. You talked about, tapping and credit cards rather than cash. I don't know if you have this experience, but a lot of places I go nowadays don't even have cash. They don't accept cash. It's only card or sometimes only Apple Pay.
Oh, wow. I have not experienced the only Apple Pay, but I have experienced the only a credit card. In fact, since this is Money Unwrapped and it's about how to become really good with your money and financially literate, if you don't have a credit card in today's world, you can't even rent a car.
Right.
It used to be you could put down a deposit cash-wise and rent a car. You can't get a plane ticket. There's so many things that you can't do without a credit card that kind of funnels everybody into, oh, this is easy. Let me use this credit card to pay things. And then they have like no concept of how much things really cost. And that's really where I think people get into trouble.
Yeah, I think that brings up a really great point of how our society is completely changed and geared towards credit cards. And actually, something that I've learned throughout my experience is that there's so much psychology behind credit cards. And that's one of the reasons why they're so successful, is that they actually tap into our brain. So our brains are just wired to seek rewards, as we know, and credit card spending behavior actually triggers those neurological responses. So whenever you swipe your card, your brain's reward center lights up with activity, which then, of course, creates the cycle of card swipe, dopamine release, pleasure feeling. And also
Stereo.
and stereo, which is no immediate financial pain, right? You didn't feel the pressure of that expense of $2,500, which I'm assuming at the time was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of money, but I'm into music. And so, again, you're young and you're dumb and you do stupid things.
Right, it's worth it, right? It's
Right,
worth
it was worth it. That Alpine stereo system was rocking.
Hey, and even now, however many years later, you're still talking about it. So I think
Right.
it was worth every penny. But I think that also, whenever there's no immediate financial pain, you also have reduced spending restraint. You're spending more. Actually, research even shows that people spend 12 to 18% more when using credit cards compared to cash.
That doesn't surprise me.
Why doesn't that surprise you?
Because to your point on the whole psychology, people buy something like a purse, they get the reward, and they don't really feel the financial pain of it.
That hit a little too close to home. Oh my gosh. Well, I think that we can talk about how credit cards are harmful and how they tap into our brain, but I think that we should be talking about how we can make credit cards work for us and how we can kind of flip the script and leverage them for our benefit. Do you have any main thoughts about that and how you can use credit cards without fear?
I do. One thing that's really great that's kind of come about in the last 20, 25 years is rewards. And like, for example, I have an American Express Platinum card. We get rewards that will pay for airline tickets. One of the best ones that I have on my American Express is Clear. They pay for my Clear membership.
Do they really?
They do. They'll also pay for a family member's Clear membership.
Gotta love it.
Right, but what's nice about the rewards, and I always tell people, when you're looking at a card, look at what the annual fee is, and then compare that to what the rewards are. Like, for example, a lot of cards like Discover has, I think it's between 1% and 3% cash back. And if their annual fee is like $300, if you spend $10,000 on the card and you get that $300 in cash back, you can either use that as a statement credit or you could get it put into your bank account, but it wipes out that annual fee. Now, you don't want to spend the money just to get the cash back, but what's nice is if you're paying your credit card off, that cash back takes care of your annual fee. And with the rewards, I mean, now, like one of my business credit cards, we get points, and I love to read, so I can use those points to buy books for free off of Amazon. So you start looking at, to your point, how do you leverage them? You want to look at it in an advantage for you. Make it a win-win. Yes, you're going to spend some money on your credit card, but as long as you pay it, and then you use your rewards the right way, you come out way ahead.
Right. I mean, I definitely feel like you can be strategic in how you use those rewards. I know for me, I use my rewards primarily on my statement balance, but then for you, you use it to fund your hobby. And I think that chimes into our earlier discussion on how, depending on your phase of life, the way you use a credit card can be so different, but it can still be equally successful for you.
Absolutely.
So big picture, I think one credit card rule that everyone should live by is the rule of 72, which you actually taught me before I started in this business.
Yeah, I mean, the rule of 72 is a great thing for investing because you take whatever your rate of return is. So we're going to use it in a different way this time because we're talking about credit cards. So let's say that your credit card charges you 20%.
Okay.
You take 20%, you divide it by 72, and that shows you how many years, if you just pay the minimum payment, it's going to double. So for example, if you get that minimum payment, which we call the evergreen payment, your credit card is 20%. 20 divided by 72 is 3.6 years. So like my stereo, $2,500. If I just pay the minimum payment, I will have paid $5,000 for a $2,500 purchase in 3.6 years. That's why we want people to not max out their credit card and not to do the minimum payment because really it's not $2,500 in this example. It's really like $5,000 or it could be even more depending on how long it takes you to pay that balance off.
Right. you actually spoke to a really good point where I have never recommended to anyone to max out their credit card, but have you in your experience?
No.
Do you ever think there's a time for maxing out your credit card to be beneficial?
I have a lot of clients that they charge everything on their credit card because of what we talked about earlier, the rewards.
Right.
And they can get these reward points. But the difference is they don't pay the minimum payment. They pay their balance off every month. So they don't have any interest really. And they get all these reward points, which they can use for travel or their hobbies or whatever, statement credit, whatever they want to do. And I think that's a way that you can use a credit card smartly if you have the cash flow to pay it off every month, to leverage those reward points.
Right. I mean, it kind of boils down to what we've been talking about this entire time, which is the only way to use it strategically is dependent on your cash flow.
That I would agree with that 100%. Like you remember when you were in college, you were on a budget, right?
Oh, yes, still am.
Right. Right. So you are really aware of what you spend on your card.
Right. I also think that just like you're on a budget, just in a different way with each phase of life, and the more money you make or the less money you make, your budget shifts. When you have kids or you have a house.
Those kids are expensive.
Hey now. But whenever you have these big life changes, the way that you use your credit has to change. But I think one of the things that I want to end on is truly, what do you think is the biggest mindset shift that people need to have about credit cards? Because I have my opinion where it's not free money, and people need to recognize that, and people need to respect it in such a way so that they're not fearful of using their credit card, but they are strategic. And like you said, they use it wisely. But I wanted to hear what you think their mindset shift should be.
I think what I'm about to say applies to everything in people's financial life. And it's, kind of cliche, and people have heard it, but it's very true. You need to live below your means. And when I say live below your means, if you clear after taxes on a monthly basis $5,000, you don't spend over $5,000. You spend $4,750, so you have a little bit of a buffer. Because if you're constantly living below your means, you're never going to get yourself into trouble. And I'm sure that on podcasts we're going to do in the future, we'll talk about why it's important to save money. But if you live below your means, you'll be always in great shape. It's not how much you make, it's how much you spend. And one thing I remember when I was a baby advisor, somebody had told me, as you make more money, you'll spend more. I thought they were crazy, but they were 100% correct. So I've always tried to live below my means as best I can. I mean, and we all, have splurges, and we all do things sometimes. But if you live below your means, especially when it comes to credit cards, so, if your credit limit's $5,000, you only spend a couple of grand. You don't spend the whole $5,000.
Right.
So we want to thank everybody for listening. And if you have any questions or concerns, or you have any friends, family, colleagues, or coworkers who are interested in learning more about investing or unwrapping their money, you can call us at 913-827-4588.
We would love to hear your feedback or any topics that you want us to talk about. Thank you once again for joining us. I'm your host, Jordan Harrison.
And I'm your host, John Harrison. And this has been
Money Unwrapped. Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Elevation Advisory Partners, LLC. A SEC-registered investment advisor. Harrison Capital Management, Silver Oak Securities, and Elevation Advisory Partners are separate entities.